Okay, and I just lost my notes. Okay, so we know that this session is over the lunchtime. So please enjoy your lunch, eat, take care of yourself. And we're so glad that you're here and have joined us. So it is my pleasure to welcome you to this special session for Collaborative Coordinators of Children's Mental Health and Family Services Collaboratives. I think I can speak for all of More Resilient Minnesota staff when I say that we recognize the incredibly hard work you've all been doing to support children, families, and communities, especially over the past year of uncertainty, during civil unrest, and the ongoing restrictions due to the pandemic. It's just been a little crazy lately. You are all such inspiring leaders, and we're so grateful to partner with you and learn from you as we roll out More Resilient Minnesota across the state. During this session, we'll do introductions. We'll provide a brief overview of More Resilient Minnesota. We'll highlight the Collaborative Coordinator Slack channel. We'll share about More Resilient Minnesota Lending Library. We're excited about that one. And hear from collaborative coordinators who have started implementing their community resilience initiatives as part of the fourth phase of the process. We'll also close with some space for question and answer about the initiative too. So thank you again for joining us. And with that, I turn it over to Susie.
Hello, thank you, Barb. I'm Susie. I use she, her pronouns. I would like to invite you all to introduce yourselves in the chat today. We're kind of moving through at a clip today. So we don't have time for verbal introductions, but I would love to hear from everybody in the chat. So please share your name, what collaborative or collaboratives you're a part of, or the counties that you represent, and the length of time in your collaborative coordinator role. Thank you. I see some folks jumping in. Welcome. We are so glad that you are all here. While these introductions continue to come in the chat, our regional team is going to introduce ourselves as well. So as I said, I'm Susie. I use she, her pronouns. I am one of the regional coordinators of More Resilient Minnesota in the metro area. So I support about 10 collaboratives, mostly on the west side of the metro area.
Miigwech Susie. Bonjour. Nin Lindsay Indigenous Jaganashimang, Kazartswajimaka, Gundunjiba, Idashwalker in Da. My name is Lindsay McMurrin. I'm a citizen of the Leech Lake Nation of Ojibwe. I am the Regional Prevention Director and also of tribal projects in the North Central region. And so I really want to focus in on supporting communities that are adjacent to or share land with our tribal nations as well. And so while you see my little orange area there on the map, it is, kind of spotty. I just also want to offer support to any of our communities that are looking at increasing tribal relations within your work as well. So Chimigwich.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Lisa Deputy. I am the Metro Regional Director for Family Wise Services. I am so glad that you all took some time out today to work with us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jenna Schmidt. I use she, her, and they pronouns, and I'm the Regional Director of Prevention Initiatives for Northern Minnesota. and I am located in Duluth.
Hi, my name is Emily Clary. I'm the Senior Director of Prevention Initiatives at Family Wise Services. And I used to work in the Metro and have a region in the Metro, but now I'm just supporting various areas around the state as needed. And so I'm just really happy to be here, and such a warm welcome to all of you. We're just really glad you're here.
Is it my turn to speak? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Borth. I work at DHS, and I have the pleasure of supporting the 90 Children's Mental Health and Family Services collaboratives across the state. I also wanted to echo what Barb said earlier and recognize that this was a really tough year for everyone, especially for collaborative coordinators. And I want to congratulate and celebrate all your wonderful work and recognize that you're also champions who somehow keep on keeping on. I was a collaborative coordinator once myself, so I just have some sense of your struggles during these times and recognize that you've often been cast into crisis management mode. So what I want to talk about, because some of you are newer, in fact, we've had many new collaborative coordinators come on board the last couple of years, is sort of how all this came together. How did More Resilient Minnesota come into being and connect with the collaboratives? So I'm just going to provide you with a bit of background that hopefully gives you then some context for the work we're all doing together. And what happened was during a statewide collaborative meeting, probably, oh my goodness, it was certainly a while ago, might have been 10 years ago. We had Glennis Edwall, who was at that time the director of the Children's Mental Health Division, and Jane Kretzman present on adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. And this was really new to most of us. It was also at a time when the whole, I guess, understanding of trauma-informed work was also beginning to introduce itself to our work in Minnesota. And anyway, the group of collaborative coordinators that heard Glennis and Jane speak that day really felt that what they were saying resonated with the mission and vision for collaboratives, which is to be all about prevention and early intervention and public and social health for their communities. So after that presentation, we formed an ACEs collaborative work group to see where we wanted to take this. And there were collaborative coordinators. Most of them are not coordinators any longer, but they were part of the group, as were a few community folks. And we started to talk about how things might look and work in Minnesota in connection with the collaboratives. And that led to introducing a bill in that next legislative session. And it succeeded in funding the work we're doing now. So that gives you a bit of background. And one reason that it just seemed to really resonate with everyone is not only was it reinforcing the vision and the mission of collaboratives, but it was compatible with the mandates in state statute. And also before that, it hadn't been long. Well, no, I guess it was shortly after that. As part of that whole process, we revised the statewide collaborative priorities. And you probably know there are 3 of those. And one of the priorities is strengthen resilience and protective factors of families, schools, and communities. And what really drove the need to revise and update the priorities was all the motion going on around ACEs and trauma-informed work. So I know sometimes this might feel like an extra expectation of the collaboratives. And again, it's entirely your decision or your collaborative's decision whether or not you choose to participate. 71 of the 90 collaboratives have chosen to do this, but the vision was that because this was so aligned with the work that you already do, that it could really become integrated as part of your work. As we've discussed before, but it bears repeating, this model is grounded in the self-healing communities model that was developed by Rob and Dr. Kimberly Martin and Laura Porter. And the model is really about growing the capacity of communities to just define and solve their problems that are impacting the intergenerational health and well-being of their community members. There are 4 phases, and you can see the slide on the screen here. And the approach for these 4 phases grew out of, again, that working group and drafting the legislative bill. And it happened to also be very parallel to the process that had been used in Washington State very successfully, and also is very comparable to the way the tribal near community wisdom does its work in terms of, really relying a lot on learning more about near science, which includes ACEs, and also really listening to communities and one another. So as I mentioned, this was supported by legislation that was the funding became effective in 2017, and it's built into legislation that applies to children's mental health grants. So it's now part of the base funding, which is nice because even though it isn't a large sum of money, it's a consistent sum and recognizes a commitment to keep supporting this work. And what I've been working on along with FamilyWise is drafting the next 5-year contract, grant contract, because the current one will end at the end of this month. So that one's in the works, and it will be somewhat similar to what we've already done, but obviously we've learned along the way. So there'll be some tweaks to it, and it will continue to support and sustain More Resilient Minnesota. So again, thank you for being here. And if you ever have any more questions about the collaboratives or More Resilient Minnesota, please let us know. You can see the map up there, which was updated this month and really shows how this has crossed the state, and also how many collaboratives, as the shade of blue gets darker, have sort of progressed into later phases of the initiative. And again, here's the infographic for those of you who weren't at the introduction and the welcome. It gives our latest numbers, which are really impressive when you think that, More Resilient Minnesota is just kind of a preschooler. I mean, we're still kind of pre-K. I guess next year we'll be entering kindergarten, but it's just only really about 5 years old. And you can see the number of participants that have been reached, the presentations. It's involved 67 counties. You've been able to reach many people through either community resilience conversations or 100 cups of coffee interviews. And we've trained, or I should say FamilyWise has trained many presenters from many of the collaborative communities. So again, thank you for all your work, and keep on keeping on.
And I'll just say a couple of other things about More Resilient Minnesota. And I apologize, I am not always great at remembering to do transition language. So I do want to just really acknowledge Ann Borth's support of this initiative and advocacy throughout the last 5 years, and for this new contract, and all the partnership that you have provided to FamilyWise as we've been really trying to figure out how to do this work, alongside all of you who have given us a lot of input as we've been figuring this out. And as my former colleague used to say, Becky, she used to say, we're building the bike as we ride it. So again, we really appreciate all the grace that you have given us as we are really learning how to do this work with you in a way that is really works for your communities. So as Ann mentioned, and we shared that slide a little bit ago about the 4 phases, some of the key early phases of the initiative are phase 1 and phase 2, which really focus on broadening awareness about what we call neuroscience. So the science of neurobiology, and how stress impacts our brains, our developing brains, epigenetics, how we believe that stress markers may be passed down across generations based on some emerging science in that field, the adverse childhood experiences study, and historical trauma, and then also really focusing on protective factors, resilience research, and what we can do to really mitigate the harm of ACEs and historical trauma. And so that's really what we start with the first couple of phases are first going out and working alongside you and your communities to share this information as part of phase one. As part of phase two, our goal is to really train local people from different sectors in your community to continue to share this information, because we really want to support capacity of your own communities to get this information out, because we believe that just even hearing this information can create opportunities for change. And so broadening awareness is the first kind of couple phases of this initiative. And then phases 3 and 4 that you'll be hearing a little bit more about shortly, really focus on moving from awareness of ACEs and neuroscience into action. And we do that by supporting communities in phase 3 to host those community resilience conversations and 100 cups of coffee interviews that engage diverse community members to really give their input about what are the strengths of my community, what are some of the challenges that I see, and where do we go from here? So collecting all that input from various, really a diverse group of community members is the goal during phase 3. And with that input, the hope is that collaboratives and their planning teams will develop community resilience plans that are guided by community wisdom and local data that's really unique to the needs of that specific community or your collaborative area. And so, as in mentioned, Family Wise Services really supports this initiative in partnership in our team who you met a little bit ago. We support this initiative with funding from DHS. And our goal is really to support and grow more resilient communities across Minnesota through that capacity building approach and the self-healing communities approach. On the next slide, and Anne already talked about them, so I know we're toggling back to some slides we've already looked at, but just to give you a sense of how many collaboratives have opted in. So we have 71 collaboratives have opted in, so 79% of the 90 collaboratives across the state have joined the initiative. The application process is pretty simple. It's just a one-page document you could fill out in a couple minutes, but really just that's kind of the ask we have is that you express interest in the initiative before our staff can reach out to you to start planning. Of those 71 collaboratives that have opted in, 11 have applied and haven't started facilitating the phases yet. 13 are currently in phase 1, which is focused on that broadening awareness of ACEs. 13 are currently in phase 2, which is focused on building capacity by training presenters to broaden awareness through those ACE interface presentations. 14 collaboratives are currently or have gathered community input and wisdom through 100 cups of coffee or community resilience conversations. And then 5 collaboratives have drafted their community resilience plans that are unique to the needs of their communities based on what they learned in phase 3. And they have either started to or are in the process of or have completed offering community resilience initiatives with seed funds from DHS. So we've had a total of 6 initiatives that have been funded through this process. This is a fairly new, we've finally gotten to the development of the phase 4 and what that looks like. And we're really, again, still learning as we go. But that's just kind of a snapshot of where we are now and in partnership with all of you across the state. And we have learned so much, as I said, alongside all of you and each of you over the last 5 years. And we have a lot of, we're really excited about what the next 5 years will look like. So, so I think that is kind of, I'll just take a pause for a moment and see if people have any questions about what we've shared so far about the initiative and the overview before we go into the next topic. And feel free, and this is a small group, so feel free to unmute if you want to share that way, or you can enter any questions you have in the chat as we go as well. All right. Well, without further ado, I think we'll shift to the next couple of slides that I wanted to share. I'm excited to share that we've got a couple of new resources that we will be offering to collaboratives in the coming year. As part of More Resilient Minnesota, we've developed these resources to really support the focus on community resilience planning and some of your efforts that you're already underway. And so I will name that some of the reasons that we have these additional resources available now is because COVID has shifted the way that we're doing our work. So instead of investing in travel for a period of time for all of the different activities we used to do in person, we've reallocated some of those funds to support collaboratives in different ways. And so I'll go into a couple of those ways right now. So first, what we've done is we purchased Paper Tigers and Resilience documentary licenses for each collaborative region. So collaboratives can host in-person screenings for those films. So, and again, we're trying to get creative here. And so we appreciate your grace as we're figuring out how to do this. But basically what that means is that we will transfer, our FamilyWise will transfer one license for each of those films to each region. And so what we're really hoping for is to identify one collaborative in each region who's willing to hold the license for one or both of those films. If that license holder, that collaborative who opts in and is interested in hosting those screenings does choose to get that license and receive that license, we just ask that you share with other collaboratives in your region the promotional material with them so they can invite some of their partners and share that when those screenings are happening. So we would encourage you to discuss this and or decide which collaborative will hold the license for one or both of those films, either via email or at your next collaborative regional meeting. And once you decide who you would like to host that, you can just let me know, and then we'll send you the films, and thus the licenses will be transferred. And so really a reason we really believe that this is another tool, these films are another tool to really have conversation and community. And I'm not sure, I do know that a number of collaboratives have already hosted and may already have the licenses for these. So if anyone wants to offer any feedback about how useful these films have been in their community resilience planning, I'd welcome that input right now as well. Otherwise, we're happy to just share. Oh, let's see. We've got a question from Rochelle. Yes, absolutely. So great question, Rochelle. So basically this license is a lifetime license. So you could share that, host that screening once, you could host it 50 times. I think the idea is we're hoping to identify collaboratives in each region that have interest in really hosting, maybe more than once if possible. So you could really generate, get the use out of that film and that license. So I know it's tricky to, narrow down to one community, especially in some regions that are a lot larger. And just know that, I'm happy to share the price of what that is like if you're really hoping to get that license for yourself, for your own collaborative as well. So that's another option, but we're hoping that this will be like an added resource in your collaborative regions as well. So feel free to let me know. And we are hoping that it'll be, you can check in with your regional contacts, and we will share. Jenna, would you mind sharing the picture of the collaborative map on the next slide? And that one is the link that Lisa, I believe, put in the chat a little bit ago. So she put in the link to the 7 collaborative regions map. So on this map shows the 7 different regions. And so I think many of you are already meeting within your regions, maybe quarterly or once a year. And so that might be the kind of the way that you could decide which, maybe it's one collaborative that holds one of the licenses, one holds another, maybe it's one that holds both, kind of centrally located. So we'll defer to you and your regions to really figure out how you might want to use those films. There is no cost, really. That the idea is the film would be made available at no cost through this initiative for the one identified collaborative in the region that is in your region. Otherwise, I think we purchased, I think it was between, gosh, I wish I remembered off the top of my head, about $250 to $500 for the license. So if there was multiple partners who really wanted to have access to that film, and that's also an option, is that you could purchase your own license as well. But we're hoping to start with getting a sense of like, if there's readiness and interest in your region, and Beth, maybe if you're the collaborative that's most interested in hosting and others are okay with that, then that's just a discussion you can have within your collaborative region with the other collaborative coordinators in that region to identify who's holding the license for each film. And we know it's a little bit, it's like a little bit of a messy process, and we were trying to get creative on how to really get these films out without having the budget to really buy one for every single collaborative. So we appreciate, again, your grace as we're trying to share these resources in a way that's somewhat shared across the state. And feel free to send me more questions if you have them about this new resource as well. And if you have any now, feel free to continue to put those in the chat. We appreciate that. So the next resource, because I want to make sure we can get through the full agenda today. So the next resource we wanted to launch today as well, that we're very excited about, and it's been in the works for 6 months to a year, is the More Resilient Minnesota Lending Library, which we are going to launch today officially, which my colleague Steffi will be sharing a little bit more about this. And so, but first, basically, we just wanted to share what, again, because of some of the extra dollars we had because of not traveling as much, we really wanted to put those dollars to good use. And so what we've developed is a lending library that all collaborative coordinators can so it's really specific to collaborative coordinators are able to access this library. And we know that sometimes there are proxies who are working closely with collaborative coordinators. So you could check in with your collaborative coordinator and ask them to check something out for your planning committee if that was helpful. But this lending library is really, the focus is to help collaborative coordinators have access to borrow and expand knowledge and understanding of neuroscience. Our hope is to promote continuous community engagement, wisdom, creativity by inspiring innovative and compassionate responses while building self-healing communities. So these are some tools you can use as you're working on community resilience planning and efforts, and really trying to find different tools to engage families, communities, adults, your planning committee in these concepts in different ways than just, you know, the traditional way of talking about things or sharing papers and articles. So there are some games that have been developed by the Community Resilience Initiative, which is some of our really respected partners on the West Coast out of Walla Walla, Washington. Peacemaker Resources, which is up in Bemidji, is another close partner, and they've developed a lot of different cards that are useful, categories, and some other cards for people to check in and kind of really practice those social emotional regulation practices. We've got a DVD about the ACE study that you could use and share with your community members. So lots of different tools. I mean, it's a small library and we're really hoping to grow it in the coming years, but for now we've got some basic kind of go-to tools that we think are especially helpful from partners we really trust. So that's kind of the premise of this. And you will be able to see the collection for this on the webpage. Yep, board engagement. It's a really great way to have just tools and check-in practices with your board. You can find details about the full collection on our lending library website on the FamilyWise webpage, and that will be posted in the chat in a minute. And again, in the interest of growing the library, if you have anything that you would like to donate or recommend, please let us know. We want to continue to grow this resource for you. A couple of logistical policy related things. So the library items can be checked out for 45 days and renewed for an additional 45-day period. So that's, you know, 3 months, if I'm doing the math right. FamilyWise will ship the items to you. So we'll get them out to you. And then we just ask that you ship them back and cover that with your collaborative funds. So we can, because I think it would just be a little bit messy to do invoices for the $12 to get the shipping back or whatever the cost is. So if you're interested in using it, I just want to share that's kind of how it would work. For a full overview of the lending library policies, please visit our lending library website, and that should be in the chat shortly as well. So now I will turn it to Steffi, who's my colleague, who's really kind of working through the flow of how patrons will be able to use the library. And so I think she'll be sharing that in a moment. So Steffi, I'll pass on to you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So I've been kind of familiarizing myself with this over the last week or so. And so I'm just going to share my screen so you just can kind of see what it looks like. If you were, I think on the site, they call them patrons, the people that are the ones that are checking stuff out, which would be you guys. And so I can just kind of show you what that looks like. It's a very easy process. So okay, so first you would go to, I don't know if you can see the website up here, but it's libib.com/u/FamilyWise. So it's a pretty good and concise link. And then once you click on that, you're brought to this page. You're brought to this page. And it has everything listed out here with pictures and then names as well. And the reason why there's only a handful of things is because we have several copies of each thing. Which is really nice. So then you can, I believe you can click on it. And if this is something you would want to check out, you could add a hold, meaning that letting us know that that's something you want to check out. And then it's going to ask you to also log in. And so each patron will have their own login. And then, so that means that I just check that out. Now on my end, I would go in and see that someone checked it out and I can scan it on my end. Let me stop sharing my screen. Okay, so then this is what everything comes in. There's various sizes of these little pouches here. And then they have everything inside, and they also have these tags on them. They're laminated tags with QR codes. Now I can take my phone or a phone and scan it in and out when someone checks something out, and then it's automatically checked out in the system as well. So I don't believe you as a patron will have to do anything with this tag. It's just for us, but just we have to make sure they stay on there so we can check them in and out easy. And yeah, and so I will be the one sending those out as well. And we're hoping to get, we have an email set up so that we should get notifications every time someone checks something out so that I know to send it right away. It'll most likely come in like a USPS priority envelope, depending on how fragile the item is. And then, as Emily said, I think you're expected to pay shipping back out of collaborative funds. So, and I think that's everything I needed to explain. But yeah, everything lives at our FamilyWise, our main FamilyWise building in Minneapolis. So that's where it lives for right now. And like Emily said, I hope we have the capacity to widen it. So it's a really cool system. So thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Steffi, for that. And again, we know this is a new system that we're all learning together, so please keep those questions coming about it as you're starting to use this website, or if you have questions or anything that's not clear, we want to know, just so we can really refine how we're talking about it and sharing about how this whole new resource works. So I think without further ado, I will be turning over to Jenna, who will be introducing that Slack channel.
Yeah, thanks everyone. So some of us should be familiar with Slack already. We introduced it, I believe, at the gathering last year, I think, during the collaborative coordinator session as well. So we're just reintroducing it. We have a Slack channel that has a lot of resources, events, opportunities, a bunch of stuff on it. So I'll show you. I think I pulled it up on accident earlier when I was sharing my screen, so I'll get there. But here's the process of how to sign up for it. So I think in the chat, the link was put in, perfect. So you click that link, you would get a screen that looks like this, where you would enter your name and your work email. You will get a code in your email that you put in, and you'll have to enter that email here on a prompt. And that should allow you entrance into our workspace. We have gotten some feedback back, and we've seen that Google Chrome seems to be the best web browser. So if you're having any difficulties, try a different web browser. And then, as it says here at the bottom, you'll automatically be added to 3 channels: Near Science Resources, Slack Help, and Village News and Open Forum. To be added to our collaborative coordinator channel, you will need to direct message or post and tag Near into it to let us know that you've accessed it, and then you will be added to that channel. And so I will show you what that looks like. I think you all should be able to see this still. So these top 3 are those channels that you will be automatically entered into. And then there's some other ones that you can add. The ones with the pound symbol are open and available for anyone to access. The ones with the lock are ones that are not open to everyone, and such as the collaborative coordinators channel, which is right here. And that's why you need to direct message Near or someone on our team who can add you to this locked channel. And here you see we have information on streaming that we've had, streaming discussions that we've had, some updates for collaborative coordinators, and posts on here sometimes. We got some other updates. So yeah, check that out. It's also a great place for people to stay in touch with the More Resilient Minnesota project. So if you have people who are presenters, they can be added to this channel as well, and we can have them in this channel presentation opportunities, where it's a really neat way to access co-presenters or other presentation opportunities. So awesome. I see we got people joining already. Cool. All right. And I think that's all I got. If there's any questions, please feel free to send us a message and we'll help you along. We'll help you get connected to this workspace. So thank you.
Well, this is going to be one of the highlights for me today, is I get to share the new More Resilient Minnesota logo with you. You're going to be among the first folks to look at the new logo. It's kind of like a reveal party. So we're really thrilled to be able to show you the More Resilient Minnesota logo. Do you want to show them? There it is. Oh my goodness, you even did the curtains. Great. Well, we've been feeling like we're at a point where, after we came up with our name, More Resilient Minnesota, and our tagline, collaboratively honoring and healing communities, that it was time to have a look, a certain look and a logo for our work together. So we have been working with a creative team at Amplify on some of this branding and social marketing stuff, and it's been really fun. They studied materials, they and surveyed about 20 to 25 people connected in one way or another with More Resilient Minnesota. So here's the logo, and what I want to do is read to you the words from Andrea, the graphic designer at Amplify. So this is what she said, this is how she describes what the logo means to her. The More Resilient Minnesota logo represents strength, support, and well-being. To me, the circle could be an individual, a family, or a community being lifted up into a state of thriving. The shades of blue and green are soothing and grounding. I hope that this new visual identity for More Resilient Minnesota will add a feeling of joy and positivity wherever it is used. So that's our new logo. So you'll start seeing that on many of the materials and the websites and all the rest. We'll be working it into our work. So anyway, I'm really happy to share it with you. So as I said, you're really the first folks for our first audience. So I hope you like it. The colors also we felt were compatible with the ones we were using before, and also just seems sort of to be Minnesota colors when we think about our green world out there, at least during this season, and the blues and the water and all the rest. So good. It's good to have it and have some sense of create more identity, and I don't know if you have any questions about it, but hopefully it will grow on you. So there it is. Yes, I can share that description with you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. And the logo reminds me that last line at the bottom reminds me of the foundation, and those lines that go that bend up with the ball, I don't know, reminds me of when the ball bounces and it bounces back, that resilience, the ball bounces back up. So I don't know, that's just what went through my head when I first saw the logo. I love it so much.
Oh, good. Well, I was going to share with you, Lisa, that when I saw it too, I thought it kind of reminds me sometimes of someone meditating. The shape and the
yes. Well, again, thank you so much. So we would like to introduce two collaboratives that received our micro grants as part of the phase 4 of More Resilient Minnesota this year. And we'd like to hear a little bit about their community resilience initiative. We're gonna, unfortunately, one of our collaboratives that received it was not able to be here, but I'll fill you in on what they have done to receive the grant. So right now I'm going to introduce you to and turn to Tammy Schmidt. She's with our Anoka County Children and Family Collaborative.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm wondering if I can share a screen to show people a few slides.
You can, I believe.
Awesome. I'll give it a try here. Oops, it looks like it's disabled screen sharing right now. Should I try again?
We have you as a co-host, so I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay, there we go. Now I think it's working. There we go. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. And we're so excited to share our news with you. So as Lisa said, my name is Tammy Schmitz, and my colleague Jill Brown and I provide support for the Anoka County Children and Family Council. And in particular today, because our former coworker, Christine Cole, who was so wonderful, has departed their department. But we are pleased to share information about the initiative and so grateful to convey the council's thanks to Department of Human Services for the $5,000 micro grant that made this project possible. Get this going. So what we decided to do in the Community Resilience Committee is to use that grant funding to start working with our Community Resilience Plan. So we are enhancing community collaboration and capacity with the objective of expanding leadership into a new cultural community in Anoka County. And the way we did this was through a partnership with Allina Health and their Change to Chill program and the Oromo community, especially the Oromo Resource Center. They were a cultural community who hasn't worked with Allina on this before. And the Change to Chill program is a program to teach teens how to manage stress, reduce anxiety, bring balance and calm into their life through various strategies, including meditation and mindfulness. So the pre-pilot program that you see here was held on Saturday, June 11th, right before this event. So I was glad I could bring really fresh news to you. The center is located in Fridley, and prior to the event, we let parents know what was going on with a flyer. And the youth that were in the program completed a survey at the end so they could give us feedback. Part of the idea is to see if the Oromo community found value in this sort of information, and if so, if they'd like us to bring it forward to a larger group of their population. So the youth provided some information about their findings. They felt that it was very valuable. They provided 27 out of 30 provided a survey. Leaders were also giving some surveys back to us, as well as we're having some informal conversations with them just about the workshop and the planning process, any adaptations that might be needed to make this valuable to their community. And in order to make sure people felt compensated for the effort they put into that survey, we did provide gift cards for them. We thought that was very important. The students felt that most of the information they got was very helpful. They were very satisfied. They felt the lessons were useful, and they wanted to share tips with other people. At this point, I'd like to just show you, we actually were able to hire a videographer from the Oromo community. He wanted to document what the event was, and he's actually showing part of the video here with Fami Katabe, who has been a wonderful leader in their community, leading the charge to bring this to their people, and Stacy Bezin, an instructor from Allina Health. Food was offered to the kids from their community, and their eyes just lit up when they saw the wonderful homemade sambusas one of their community members brought. And we also shared what we call a calm down kit. You'll see it on the right-hand side of your screen. It looks like a bunch of toys, but they're actually tools for kids to help them work on mindfulness through focusing on things like the hourglass, being creative with a little magnetic drawing board, reducing stress with the stress ball, And part of the reason we wanted to send that home is because this space wasn't large enough for parents to join the kids. We sent a parent tip sheet home explaining what the purpose is of these tools and kind of getting them used to the idea of what kind of mindfulness practices a person might use to reduce stress and anxiety. So we thought you might like to know what we're learning at this point, a lot about how to respect Muslim traditions. And one really big thing we learned was by accident. We ended up having to schedule the event pretty close to Ramadan. And originally we were going to do it during Ramadan, and we just decided that was just too hard for their community. We really practiced covering our heads, removing shoes in prayer rooms, making sure we chose meeting times together that would avoid prayer times for our Muslim companions. And I would just encourage anyone working with this community to offer verbal greetings instead of handshaking. That gets kind of complicated for their cultural community. Ask your audience if they want or need translated print materials. As it turned out, the Oromo community did not need that. They felt their youth spoke English well, and anybody who was struggling, they wanted to support within their community on an interpersonal basis. When possible, they really wanted us to hire target community members to fulfill the paid roles. So that's the videographer is on contract. The woman who helped us cook is also providing an invoice for us to pay her back. And we talked with our leaders in the community too about how could we honor their time with meaningful compensation. And so with the youth, we decided to give them gift cards. So a $10 Target gift card for each of the youth to engage them. And you've already heard about the other contract information. I would encourage you working with any community, especially I found with this community, if one communication method like email or phone or text isn't working, just try another one and be patient. Everybody is busy. And many of the people we were working with, any time they spent with us on this project was over and above a 40-hour job they've got. So we wanted to encourage you to also be flexible and creative with paperwork processes. This culture in particular is an oral tradition, and throwing paper at them, they weren't offended, but it really didn't go anywhere because that's not how they do business. So we need to do things more talking through things. We'd remind you that life happens to all of us. We ran into a couple little issues that weren't anybody's fault. It was uncontrollable, but to be flexible. And probably our biggest lesson of this so far that we've learned is that you really need to have multiple project champions, because as life happens, it really helps to have many hands to move that forward. I wanted to share these bright and shining faces with you. Their energy was so contagious, and they were really fun kids to work with. And lastly, again, just want to thank our project partners, of course, the Minnesota Department of Human Services for all their support. Change the Chill program at Alina, their staff have just bent over backwards helping us and providing a lot of free resources. And the Roma Resource Center, who really stepped up and just was very supportive. I wanted to offer too, if anybody needs a copy of our phase 3 data or our community resilience plan or has other questions, feel free to reach out to me at the contact information I've provided on this slide. And if you'd like, I can put that in the chat as well, so I don't keep your screen occupied with my slides.
Yes, thank you. That would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're doing some great and powerful, impactful work, and we really appreciate that.
Oh, it's our honor.
So the other collaborative that received the micro grant was Robbinsdale from out of Hennepin County. And like I said, the coordinator, she's not available, was not available to be here today. So I'm just going to go over a few things that's the reason, behind them receiving the grant. I can't go into full detail, but I can share that with you if you would like copies of it. So what they did was got a diverse set of student ambassadors from Cooper and Armstrong, and they identified and started an international district process to become those student interns and ambassadors. The ambassadors was partnered with health mentors, and selected trainings were offered that they were interested in completing. They worked with 2 agencies to get the contracts approved. through the district cabinet and finance to conduct youth ambassador training. So these two important trainings were ending the silence around, suicide awareness and prevention, and the near science presentation that we offered with Family Wise Services. So both of those trainings were approved by the school board. And so they also received monies to allow to do some reading with the school students. And so that reading, one moment, please, I lost my notes. Okay. They also was able, to expand the contracted services to further the community resilience from the micro grant by contracting with the local African-American author by the name of Layman Riley, and I'll put his name in the chat as well, to share his book 8. And the book 8 is on bullying, and it was introduced last year. And so this expansion allowed them to go to Pacific classrooms and develop a continuum of the shared resilience theme. Weaving in restoration, mental health, leadership opportunities together, and preparing the students for their mentoring sessions for the high school ambassador year. So that's a lot about what Robbinsdale have done. They've worked with, they've identified BIPOC school-linked mental health providers to attend the end of silence, near science trainings, just in case the students got triggered or needed some help as well. So, thank you.
Awesome. Well, so exciting to hear these success stories. And thank you, Lisa, for sharing Robbinsdale's. Thank you all for hanging on a little bit longer than we had expected. As I mentioned in the chat, we obviously don't have time for a live Q&A, but feel free to throw questions in the chat or email us. We're happy to answer whatever you have. And our next sessions this afternoon start in about 5 minutes. So take a quick break, and then we look forward to seeing you at our next breakout sessions. And we will try to throw the session links in the chat too quickly here. So thank you all.